Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Law Firms of the Future. I'm excited to be interviewing Neil Oberman, the innovation lead and a shareholder in the civil and commercial litigation group at Spiegel Sohmer, a Canada-based law firm that specializes in tax law, intellectual property, business law, litigation, real estate law, and succession. With 25 years' experience, Neil is recognized for his talent as a litigation lawyer and regularly represents his diverse clientele before the Court of Quebec, the Superior Court, and the Quebec Court of Appeal. Neil is also an avid proponent of using technology to help lawyers be more efficient and spend more time on the substantive practice of law. So with that, welcome, Neil.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Every day's a new adventure.
It's a good way to put it, but it's great to have you here. So to kick us off, can you tell us about the history and culture of Spiegel Sohmer?
Spiegel Sohmer is what we like to call a mom and pop shop. Basically, we recognize that our sole preoccupation is to render great personalized service to those in the community who reflect who we are as attorneys. We're from an ethnic background. Mainly, the firm was started by Jewish lawyers in the province of Quebec over 50 years ago. And the culture has been to always provide service to those people who are underrepresented because of their cultural diversity, because of their ethnicity, because of their religious beliefs. And we've actually marketed ourselves as being the lawyers next door. And because of this, we've been able to grow with a variety of different ethnic groups that were first generation in Quebec and then passed on their businesses to their children. And now we have a very flourishing business in those milieus that were at the onset of our business really underrepresented. So we have a culture of being a mom and pop shop. You come in for a coffee and you leave with a will.
How would you say that Spiegel Sohmer's roots would distinguish it from other law firms in addition to this mom and pop you've just described?
Yeah, because I think law is really a customer service-based business, and because we're not a national law firm or what they call the sister group of law firms, we have to distinguish ourselves based on providing cutting-edge service at a good price with good technology to support that service. As a smaller firm, we're able to be more innovative in the technology sphere because we're less encumbered by bureaucracy, less encumbered by multiple layers of committee meetings, persons overviewing things. We can deploy technology in a quick and efficient manner in order to reflect the needs of our clients. So in that regard, it makes us very competitive. Now, of course, we are not the larger firms within the pan-Canadian family, but because of the reach of our intellectual skill sets, as well as our innovation in technology, we play with the big guys, but we don't suffer from their shortcomings, shall we say.
So I'd like to hear more about the role of technology in the firm's innovation, and particularly your approach to evaluating and purchasing new technology for the firm.
Yes, that's a great question. And ultimately, I think we're living now the experience of good planning when it comes to technology. Since the unfortunate situation revolving around the pandemic known as COVID-19, our firm was able to deploy its robust work remote stations to all of our employees so that we were in effect able to stay operational during this pandemic, which is ongoing. This demonstrated that the planning that I implemented for our firm was well placed. Several months, well, actually almost a year prior to the pandemic, we had already decided to shift our orientations to mobile servicing. In other words, laptops, in terms of being able to work robustly from external locations. So when the COVID-19 appeared, it was not necessary for our firm to react. Our firm simply had to enhance its deployment and then institute more robust policies regarding use of out-of-the-office technology. In retrospect, I think we were very well prepared. And in fact, I can tell you that even during the pandemic, I was able to negotiate a very interesting relationship with Xero, which will help our firm become even more cutting edge. So I would say that technology is the greatest innovation is technology, and technology is innovation. but the inability to implement technology because of bureaucratic limitations and inability to make final determinations on what products to use, it really hampers the ability to grow and to be successful. But we have sidestepped that on the basis that I'm very much a immediate thinker and an immediate doer. I like to plan, but I don't like to overplan, and I certainly don't like to procrastinate about making decisions. Decisions have to be made fairly quickly in an environment that constantly changes.
I'm curious to hear more. So Xero is obviously, if you listen to the intro to this podcast, the company that I work for. So of course, I'm interested in hearing more about why the firm decided to purchase Xero and how you see that fitting into your mobile workflows. And then in addition to Xero, which technologies you think are essential for true mobility?
Right. So Xero worked well into our long-term strategy on the basis that as people work from different locations, they have to have the ability to file their emails into a document management system. While, even the remote worker's definition is changing, because, a traditional remote worker could be somebody sitting in their house and in a sort of a stagnant position, simply doing their daily work. So office is replaced by home office. But in reality, the home office is not the only office. The car is the office, the chalet is the office, your in-law's home is the office, the park is the office, walking the dog is an office. So in order to achieve a sort of seamless link between those different elements, the Xero Knowledge product provided a very good tool, which was the ability to file those emails from your iPhone into a document management system that uses specified groupings of categories, correspondence, proceedings, memos, and the like. So in my view, this actually facilitated a more efficient process for the staff and the lawyers to be able to get a sort of handle on their administration. Because if you're sloppy in the office, you're going to be sloppy out of the office. So to avoid this sort of continuation or promotion of not being efficient and being orderly, this product looks like it will be able to serve that milieu and keep lawyers focused on doing the law and not the administration.
I think that's great. And are there other technologies that you think are essential to success as a law firm in this changing environment?
Yeah, I mean, the most basic necessity for a remote worker obviously is having a very good laptop. Not only a laptop, but a device that is, it could be a desktop, it could be a laptop, or it could even be a tablet. But the key element of any of those hardware categories is that they be robust and be updated and have the best and latest platforms, including Windows 10 or any versions of an iPhone or a tablet that's updated. Because if you're using old technology, you will not be as efficient, it will not be as robust. Fortunately, in our particular case, all of our lawyers are accompanying their very up-to-date laptops. And the truth is, it's very important to have uniformity in your hardware, because people who use different hardware equipment, it becomes more difficult to maintain and update those products. But we have a very robust system that allows for the maintenance of all of our laptops on a seamless basis. So I think that's very key to be efficient as a remote worker.
So what do you think will be some of the major changes to the lives and workflows of lawyers in light of this pandemic? You spoke a bit about how basically the office is everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yes.
But what are some of the, you think, more practical implications of this?
Technology is one thing, but, there's one piece of technology that we haven't talked about, and that's the human brain. And the human brain is the most advanced technology, but yet the most limited technology. Because you can have the best laptop, the best internet connection, and the best work tools. But if your hardware, what's in your mind, is not well situated, then your hardware is only an extension of your finger, right? So I think what we're going to have to do in this new sort of post-pandemic era is to train those who feel, and it's a feeling, that they can't be working unless they're working in the way that they're used to working, in an office with a wall and a window and a desk. If you can't retrain your staff and your associates to understand the sort of flexibility in the new environment, then your biggest impediment will be not the equipment, but the human equipment. And, you know, I'm a true believer in a concept, and it's called lead, don't follow philosophy. It's very easy to follow. You know, it's a very common thing among lawyers, especially in litigation, where people start talking about a certain fact as being true, and then the next lawyer repeats it as, oh yeah, well that fact must be true. And then throughout your history of your file, everybody's repeated a fact, but you don't know if it's true. So in the same way, I don't practice law by following. I don't practice technology by following. I like to lead. And part of the leadership is to instill in your employees and your associates the need to think out of the box, the need to retrain their methodologies. So actually, most of our hard-earned energy is spent with millennials trying to make them understand that, you know, the world is a different place. Technology is a good tool, but the better tool is you. Ultimately, you hire a lawyer. You don't hire a computer. And, you know, the reliance solely on the computer to do the work of the lawyer is maybe something that might come to fruition somewhere in the future through artificial technology. And it's, I know, widely used in a lot of jurisdictions. But ultimately, people are paying for legal services and for experience. So I think the future will be bright if the people who are directing the future direct those to use the technology in a way that makes life easier, but also continues to render quality service in accordance with professional codes of conduct and existing custom and milieu.
Do you think law schools should be providing more training to their students to help them be prepared for this reality?
I think law schools, you know, I don't want to get into my philosophy on whether law schools are a business or not, but the reality is law schools have to train their students to make them understand that the practice of law is not about opening a book and looking for a case or citing a statute. It's about dealing with people. And, you know, you bring your personality to your profession. So if you have poor traits as a person, and then you go to law school and you enhance those poor traits, then you'll bring those poor traits to your practice. Law school is an opportunity not only to enhance your intellectual knowledge, but it's an opportunity to enhance your personal knowledge and your personal skills. The diversity of law schools is an opportunity for people who perhaps have not been exposed to a diverse social, economic background of people. For example, some people have never dealt with certain types of ethnic groups or religious groups. So I think the job of the law school is not only to train good lawyers, but it's to set out people, good people, and to be giving them an opportunity. So once you change the mind, you change the structure. If you don't change the mind, you know, you have to win the hearts and minds of people, not their computers and not their iPhones. So ultimately, you know, it's symbiotic. If people don't want to change, then it doesn't matter the technology you put before them, they won't use it properly. So ultimately, there has to be a balance between the intellectual, social needs of the operators and the physical needs or technology needs of those operators. And those two are separate and apart. But I believe if you can get people to lead in life, you'll get them to lead in technology.
So what concrete advice would you give to young lawyers who are looking to basically reshape their brains and learn more about technology and how they can incorporate it into their legal practice in a constructive way?
Yeah, the first thing I would tell young lawyers is that the practice of law is challenging but very rewarding at the same time. But you have to be prepared to sacrifice. Unfortunately, there's sacrifice in everything that we do. Sometimes some sacrifices are greater and some are less greater. For example, you know, young lawyers need to understand that the technology that we provide to them is to liberate them from sitting at a desk, from being tied to a desk. So it allows them to balance their social and emotional needs with their workday. But in order to do that, they have to be prepared to make those sacrifices. And unfortunately, sometimes some associates are not prepared to make those sacrifices. In our particular firm, we approach our associates as family members. As I told you, we're a mom and pop organization. We're not some big multinational law firm that sort of doesn't know, you know, what Tony and Jimmy are doing. We know, and we address the social, emotional, and intellectual needs of our associates in a way to make them more efficient as lawyers and be better lawyers and more cooperative with their colleagues and more enhanced to the legal community. So I think, you know, it's like socialization starts at home. Your parents socialize you when you grow up. So lawyers have to mentor younger lawyers to socialize them to understand the changing sort of platform of the legal profession. And that's something we strive to do. We're not always successful, obviously, but the real goal is to create a good environment for young lawyers to be successful as professionals, as human beings, as social, advocating in the social realm as well. Because lawyers have an obligation not only to their clients, but an obligation to the community at large. So it's a very difficult thing to do, but we're challenging our young associates to be better people.
I think that's really important, and it's great also that you have that framework of mentorship for them, because it's difficult enough, I think, to start in legal practice coming from law school without a lot of practical experience actually advising clients. So I think also adopting that change in mindset is challenging. So it's great that you help them do that in a really hands-on way from what it sounds like.
Well, look, I mean, we'd like to be considered successful at everything we do, but, we learn too. And ultimately, success is not always about being successful, right? It's about making the proper decisions to set you up to being ultimately successful. I have failed at many things, but my failure is my greatest success. Why? Because I learned what not to do. And, law is about trial and error as well. You never want to try an error that affects your client, but the reality is, as long as there's a third party making a decision about somebody's future, there's always the possibility for error. So as much as I want to talk about the theory of training the young associates, the reality is the young associates have to learn what not to do. And, as a mentor, I can tell you that I'm very, very impressed with a lot of our associates. And there are a lot of great young lawyers in the media today. But the reality is, to be a good professional means that you have to try different things. And when you try different things, you're not always going to be successful. If you're not successful, it doesn't mean you should pack up your bags and try something else. It means you should dig deeper, look more to where you can find the solutions, and you'll come up with better solutions, because law is an ever-growing, it's symbiotic also with your environment. So what you do today might be good today, but it may not be good in a week from now because the law is changing. COVID-19 has really challenged the existing structure of the legal system, at least here in the province of Quebec. And the province of Quebec has adapted. Surprisingly enough, has adapted. And they should be applauded for their ability to have adapted during this very difficult time. If you don't adapt, you don't succeed.
Got it. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. So my last question is the one that I ask all of our guests, and it harkens back to the name of this podcast. So I would like to hear about your vision for the law firms of the future.
In order to have a successful law firm in the future, the most important thing will be to have the appropriate baseline technology. Now, if a law firm doesn't have remote working, and doesn't have remote timekeeping, and doesn't have robust document management systems, and doesn't have video and IP telephony, then they don't have the basics. And if they don't have the basics, then they don't really have the infrastructure to grow their business. And even the small firms today, because technology and the price of technology have gone down significantly over the years, even the little guys, which we consider ourselves the little guys, still have the ability to sort of challenge the bigger organizations by having the same technology, obviously scaled to our particular needs, but we're not locked out of the technology realm because we're not, a multinational law firm with, offices in a variety of different countries. So the greatest ability for the lawyer to succeed today is the ability to acquire, implement, and maintain their technology base. And ultimately, with the robust available tools, most of these law firms can and will succeed. I also like to say that, when required, you have to learn to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And if you can apply those three principles to your practice, and that would include the use of technology, then success is possible and is enhanced. The inability to improvise, adapt, and overcome stagnates your business and leaves you open to failure. And even though failure is not always the worst thing, but constant failure leads to constant failure. And that's not something that here at Spiegel Sohmer we want to do. And as an individual, I want to succeed. I want to set an example for my child and my family to say, look, I can be home a little bit more because I'm using the technology in a responsible manner to try and make my life better. By making my life better, I make my family's life better. And ultimately, it's about having that balance in life that makes you more successful. It doesn't mean if you make more money, you have more success, or you win more cases, so you must be more successful. You know, I look at myself and I see myself today, and I'm not the same person I was 25 years ago. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a reality check that we as people have to learn to adapt. And as I said to you, technology can be used appropriately or inappropriately. But for me, as the sort of technology leader in the firm, I see a lot of great things. And I'm hoping that this COVID-19 experience has taught some organizations of the need to be innovative in their technology.
Great. That's a great answer. So thank you again for joining us today, Neil. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to releasing this episode.
I wanted to thank you and your team for giving me this opportunity. I also want to thank everybody in my firm that have cooperated and collaborated in the deployment of all of our technology. And you know, ultimately, I'll repeat myself, you're only as good as your associate is happy. So we want to keep our associates happy. We want to keep our clients well served. And we want to do good things, because to do good things brings good things. So with that, I say adieu, bonjour, shalom, and see you next time.